During the pandemic, I had bought my first store-bought NAS. Wasn't my first time learning NASs. In the past, I used to take old systems and turn them into NASs, but this was my first store-bought NAS, and it was the TerraMaster. And I've done a video on it, and I have a card up here for it. At first, I was just using it more like a file server and all that, and then sometime last year, I started to get more and more into Plex. As before, I was just using the native MMS media server services. It started to fail me. So I went ahead and installed Plex on it. I could have went the open source route and went Jellyfin, but the TerraMaster at the time didn't have the ability to install Docker. Now it does, so I might actually explore that a little bit later. And everything is great on my NAS. A year ago, talking to my buddy about Plex and everything, he bought himself a NAS. He got a Synology off of eBay. But as a tech guy explaining it to a person that's he's technical, but not 100% technical, I didn't really explain the benefits of a NAS. So I kind of failed him. So I'm hoping this video is going to help people out there from my error of my ways of me explaining this to my buddy. So the benefit of a NAS is the multiple drives. So my buddy, he had the Synology with a 4 terabyte drive, and then he went out and bought a 12 terabyte drive to back up everything. It's like, dude, no. The whole point of having a NAS system is those extra drives that you throw in the unit gives you redundancy. But it matters how you set up RAID. If you set up RAID just as RAID 0 or RAID 1, you're not going to really get redundancy. It's really when you hit RAID 5 that really helps you get redundancy on your drives. So just imagine that when you have multiple drives in your NAS, a portion of your drive is used for your normal data, and then another portion of it right here is used for redundancy. So if you got 4 drives, a portion of it is used for your regular data and a portion is used for redundancy. So if one drive dies, from the portions that it has saved from redundancy, it could rebuild your data. So it's as simple as that. So that's why you put multiple drives in a NAS, usually same type of drive or the same size of drive. I'll get to that in a minute and you're good to go. So I used to have a DAS that I edited video off of, and that DAS had the same size of drive, but not the same type of drive. I'm going to explain that in a moment. You can use 2 different drives from 2 different manufacturers as long as they are similarly spec in speed and everything. If you put in, I'm going to put in this 4 terabyte drive and this 4 terabyte drive, but this one moves at 54 RPM and this one moves at 72 RPM, that's not going to work. You have to have 2 drives, similar speed, specs, and everything, and you can do it. So that's why the DAS worked and everything. Recently, I've been having a little bit of issue with it, but I'll deal with that. It's been having some problems. I think it's due to the enclosure that I had put in. So you can do that. Just keep it in mind. But to keep it simple, just remember the original drive that you bought and then roll it out slowly. You can start out with 1 drive and just be like, all right, don't have RAID, don't have anything. Everything's just stored on that 1 drive. You put in the 2nd drive. So now, don't start RAID yet. It'll span everything between 2 drives. It's best to enable RAID once you have 3 drives. Once you have that 3rd drive in your NAS, then you'll start to get everything across the board and some redundancy. So I will post a thing down below up on the different RAID types and all that, so to help further someone out there, their knowledge of it. And if you want to know more about RAID types, you just contact me and I could explain exactly how it goes. But I realized that I really failed my friend on, I sold him on Plex, but I didn't really explain the whole point of why having a NAS drive was so important. And actually, I have another friend out there that has like multiple like external drives, and I'm trying to see if I can find like a 2.5 version of a NAS so he could take those multiple external drives that he got and just slap them in one unit and he'd be good to go. Yes, I'm talking about you, Marcus. He watches my videos. But NAS technology is great as long as you know what you're doing. And I felt bad because he bought an old Synology, threw drive in there, and now he bought a 12 terabyte drive just to back up the 4 terabyte drive. It's like, dude, no, you didn't need to do that. Now, there's a good thing about him buying the 12 terabyte drive. If he ends up buying more 4 terabyte drives in that NAS down the line, and he gets to a point where it's getting full or stuff like that, he can take that 12 terabyte drive, slap it in, and start, long as that Synology takes 12 terabyte drives, he can rebuild his data. He has to do it one at a time. Take one drive out, put 12 terabyte in, and then let it rebuild. And then once the NAS rebuilds his data, he can start popping more 12 terabyte drives and increase the storage of his NAS for his Plex media server. So it all depends on what is the capability of your NAS. So I think my TerraMaster here, I have 4 8 terabyte drives. I think the max for this might be 12. I have to double check. It might be 16 now. Is 12 terabytes. So if this NAS starts getting full, I can repopulate the data by buying a bigger drive, slapping it in, let it repopulate off of one first, and then slap others in once it finally repopulates. So that's the benefit of a NAS. But it all matters of what manufacturer can do and stuff like that if you buy a store-bought NAS. I have made NASs out of old computers, and a lot of people are like, well, that's the better way to go. It is, but it isn't. And I explain. The reason why a lot of people would go with a store-bought NAS versus taking a old desktop and making it a NAS is actually the wattage. You get a kind of a benefit going with a store-bought NAS because it sips on power, and you really have to like reconfigure a machine, a desktop, to have it sip on power if you want to make it a NAS. However, there's an advantage of going built versus going store-bought. You can throw whatever you want in it. So you taking an old computer and all that, long as it has the right amount of PCI lanes, it's like, hey, you want 2.5 gigabit or you want 10 gigabit? Throw that NIC card in and all of that, and you're good to go. You can expand the RAM, because I hate to say it, a lot of it, like this TerraMaster here, I think it only has 2 gigs of RAM. I don't even think it has 4. I have to double check that. I'll put that down a little bit later and I'll let you know. But yeah, it's stuck on 2 gigs of RAM and all that. And this is a ARM version, not a x86 version. So, which I am kind of an advocate for ARM. I also have the original M1 Mac Mini, which is also ARM. But I'm very surprised what ARM can do, and I'm waiting to see more of what the technology can do in the future. But I have a mixed infrastructure in my home lab anyways. So, 2 gigs of RAM, and it still transcodes my video files pretty well on my Plex server. Now, my buddy and I realized that he has some Blu-rays, I got some Blu-rays. It's not really worth it to rip your pre-existing movies from a Blu-ray to a digital file in 4K. It's actually better to rip it like 1440p or 1080p because it saves space. It eats up a lot of space, those 4K video files. So unless you got money like that to be like, yo, I can drop like 20 terabytes in a thing, then you know what? You do you. I don't got money like that. I'm a scrapper. I am looking to maybe buy or build a new NAS in the future. I haven't decided yet, but I am thinking about it because I have some extra drives here that I could repopulate into a file server, and this, take my files and everything off of this and just make this a dedicated Plex server and then go from there. But I got a lot of like random projects that's going on right now, so I don't know. I'm still deciding on that. But yeah, there's NAS technology is cool. You just gotta know how to use it. And for those that are interested in Plex and how to use it in entirety, drop a comment down in the video. I'll do a how-to on Plex if you would really like this. All right, until next time, guys. Peace, love, stay gaming.